Hey, this is Troy with Now with Troy. Restart a little bit. Got a warning from LinkedIn about something the way my streaming is set up. But anyway, welcome to another Workflow Wednesday. It is August, and I can't believe that I've been at ServiceNow. I'm pointing to Now with Troy, but I've been with ServiceNow for a month. And it's been an amazing ride, and I look forward to the adventure ahead. I'm just getting into it. But as you know, anyone that you've run across me, I've been around the ServiceNow ecosystem for a long, long while. You can see, some of the partners that I've been involved with up there. I'm missing one still. Looking for the right thing to put up there from that one. And if you know who you are, love some swag. But anyway, today, one of the things I want to talk about is what is the ServiceNow CMDB? And why does it matter so much? Every niche in the planet has their acronyms, and their acronyms almost become part of the vernacular. They do. And IT has more than their share of acronyms. The CMDB is one that if you walk around IT or you're part of IT, you've no doubt heard about it. If you are a configuration manager, it consumes the bulk of your brain thinking about the CMDB. Well, I want to take a step back and say, what on earth is it? Yeah, what is it from a ServiceNow standpoint? And then spend some time talking about why it matters so much. And why bring this up and why on the 10th of August would I be talking about the CMDB is because as I've worked with clients in the past, and as we work with clients here in ServiceNow and I talk to different account teams, one of the messages that keeps coming up over and over again is this CMDB is causing me headaches. Those headaches come in a number of different forms. We'll get to those. We'll find some recommendations and some paths forward. But first, step back. If you're not from IT, what the heck is this CMDB that people are talking about? First, what it stands for is a configuration management database. CMDB, configuration management database. So let's take that and break that down a little bit. Configuration management is in terms that we'll work with further. The simplest ones are the DB. It's a database. It's a collection of information. And so those first two letters, the CM, are crucial for our understanding of what the CMDB is. Configuration management is really this discipline in IT, and it can expand outside of IT. We'll talk about some different layers that we're seeing in the marketplace in a little bit. But configuration management, if I abstract it some, it means I'm keeping track of the things. We'll talk about those a little bit more because there's another acronym that shows up there. They were talking about the things that matter to the organization, that I want to put some controls around. I want to have some awareness in, and that awareness could be, when do I buy it? What's its life cycle, and when do I sunset it? What is it touching? What is it connected with? All the information that would help me understand all the things, and those can be physical or logical, all those things that help run our organization. How do I keep track of them? That's configuration management, and where you store that is in a database. ServiceNow is a platform that is built across a single database that can be intertwined, interconnected with a secure model on it, even has data encryption built on it, and it's built into the cloud and can extend. I could go on and on about the platform capability of ServiceNow. But for this, if you think about configuration management, putting it into a database, across your enterprise, what if you had one place to go to say, where are the things that help connect together to build the capabilities to run our internal processes as well as our customer-facing processes? Those reside in the CMDB. That makes sense from that standpoint. Again, this is live. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And in theory, anytime you type in some chats, I should be able to see it. And so, love creating the content, but also like to hear from you. So if the CMDB is a database where we put the things we care about that run our organization, what are those things? Maybe you've heard or you've used the acronym a CI or an asset. And some will say those are very, very different, Others will say that, my CIs are asset, my assets are CIs. Let me talk about those a little bit. And so configuration management, or CMDB, holds the things that we care about to run the business. A configuration item, that's the key. A CI is a configuration item. It's something that I put into my configuration management database that I want to manage and track. I'll track the attributes, who's responsible for it, who supports it. Maybe there's some specific attributes for that type of thing. Maybe it's a server. I want to know the serial number. I want to know what things are on it. Or maybe it's a power supply or a data center, and I want to know its physical location. All of those attributes go into the table for that specific configuration item or CI. All of that is what fits in the CMDB. I also mentioned asset. If I were going to be very strict, I would say a configuration item is anything I want to manage. An asset is anything that I want to track the financial aspects of it. That there's an investment, there's depreciation, there's sunset, there's offboarding, there's trying to recoup any of those funds. It's all the financial management of it. And so from a very academic or strict standpoint, CIs are things I want to track from a business perspective, put it into my CMDB. And asset are things that I want to track the financial basis of and understand the impact of those. Assets are CIs, but not all CIs. If you think about a logical construct, that doesn't have financial basis to track. And so not all CIs are an asset. Religious conversation or a very confrontational conversation could be had about what's a CI, what's an asset. It's okay. Take a step back from a standpoint for us to really care about optimizing business and why it matters. CI, asset, either one, there's some similarities and we can leverage whatever fits in your organization. But just know, if you really step back, there are some different focuses from a financial basis, from just a configuration management basis, and what things are in there. So we talked about CMDB, we talked about CIs and assets. But the next step is, why does it really matter? If you're a configuration manager or you're deep inside of IT, you may hear, man, I need my CMDB. I have to build it out. And some of that is, I want to track the things that are there so I know when someone says a server's down, where do I go and look? Well, who do I get support from? And often in the past, prior to ServiceNow and some other solutions, that's been tracked in spreadsheets. And that's a nightmare to maintain. And so from just a pure IT standpoint, getting that all into that CMDB, that centralized database, I can know here are all of the CIs, the configuration items that matter for our organization. That helps. That's kind of the first layer of value. The next layer that goes on top of it is where we start building in relationships. This CI is built on this CI, which is supporting this CI, which is connected to this CI. All of that intertwined relationship gets us to what we can understand as business impact. There's things like service mapping and discovery and all the different ways to map out how these CIs interrelate. And that's where another acronym, right? I should have warned you, right? That there's another one that shows up. Maybe you've heard about it. Maybe you've seen someone type or someone talk about a CSDM. Sounds similar. But what CSDM stands for is Common Service Data Model. And what the Common Service Data Model is, and it's progressed so far. ServiceNow has released version 4 of that just last year. And what it extends is a functional model to say, here's the different classes and the relationships that you can see that go from these technical components, the devices that you plug into your network, as they connect together to build applications, to build logical services, to really understand what are the business services that run your organization. So that when one server goes down, you can very quickly say, what's impacted? Is that a revenue generating application directly affecting customer services? Or is it something that's affecting a development team that works back in the back room without anyone else affected by it? the urgency to address the issues on those incidents now can be prioritized based on the impact. The CSDM, Common Services Data Model, is a logical construct to help us figure out what are the different classes that reside in our CMDB to build those relationships to get us a better understanding of impact. So, if we think about different layers of why the CMDB matters and why build out this journey along this CSDM, is where do you get value inside your organization? One is understanding what things do I have populating the CMDB. There's manual, there's automated ways to do that. There's multiple streams that feed into it. And working with ServiceNow and working with your partners to identify where those are is crucial to populating that in an automated way. Doing some data certification on it so you understand who owns it and keeps it up to date is crucial. The next layer of value is relating that to your IT service management processes so you know which things are down when. Finding ways to use that so we can use predictive intelligence or machine learning to do auto assignment and perhaps some auto healing based on what's going on, based on the impact from your common services data model. You can see how the impact the value keeps growing as we build that out. The other thing to look at is look beyond IT service management. Security is a forefront. If you've been around my channel, you know that I keep talking about the cyber attack surface is growing, and the people hacking are different than decades past. Having that accurate model of what things are in our environment so we can tackle them and understand where there's impact. If you step back and think about that from a CISO standpoint of I found a vulnerability or I have the idea that there's a security incident occurring over here, which configuration items, CIs, are involved in that vulnerability or security incident? If all I have is that entry, or perhaps the security systems found it and our IT systems didn't, that's even worse. We don't know the context. When we have a fully built out CMDB with some of that common services data model built on top of it, now we have much better insight to say, this is a vulnerability that has personal information on it, has payment information on it, has health information on it. A data breach to that could have great impact, huge impact. If we're working in life sciences, even more so when you think about impact that could cause human harm. Connecting our security systems into a built-out CMDB with a common services data model give us such tremendous insight to understand, prioritization of security incidents and vulnerabilities. More impact from building out your CMDB. The other way that it extends is really looking at where do I have configuration items. And one of the things we've seen at ServiceNow, particularly in the manufacturing space, and we've seen this from a security standpoint too, is all of the technology that is on the machine floor, on the operational floor, is important. And it's crucial for our operations. It's different than IT. But again, if I step back and say, what is it? I have independent devices interconnected to provide services. It's called operational technology. Now, in my past, I came from that environment. I used to build non-contact laser sensors and robotics that build automated processes that worked on the machine floor. So I can relate to the need to understand the operational technology and understand what are the vulnerabilities there from a cybersecurity standpoint, but also if something goes down, how is it impacted and what does it affect? Which manufacturing line goes down if this server goes down? If I lose a PLC, what's that going to affect and how do I get it back up? Where is it located? How do I find it? All of that information can be stored in an operational technology portion of our CMDB. Again, what it's taking is that fundamental concept of a CMDB and expanding it into other needs. So we talked about IT, we talked about security, we talked about operational technology. One of the things that leads to too is, coming out newer releases, we're finding enterprise asset management. Enterprise asset management takes some of the things that aren't IT, they're not operational technology, but they're things that have asset, they have financial value, but we need to track where they are. A common use case for this is in life sciences. Let's say I have a medical bed, a medical equipment that could move around the facility, and there's a limited quantity of them. I need to track where they're at, and I need to make sure they're in use. So how do I know one's sitting in the storeroom not being utilized? Or when one goes down and I have some alerting, some event management saying, hey, there's an issue on this device, how do I know where it is? Using enterprise asset management, we can bring all of those non-IT, non-OT assets into the ServiceNow configuration management database and help us perform functions against it. That improves the experience of where work flows. Each one of those is extending and expanding the value we get from our CMDB. Undoubtedly, we'll come up with more things. I didn't even talk about any of the telco solutions or any of the field service solutions where I need to go and provide either reactive service or predictive service. Or as I'm dealing with customers, how do I understand where they're working on? All of that is built in a basis for the common services data model and the CMDB. One of the things to think about too is how to build that out. And here's where ServiceNow stands. As a services account executive, one of the things that I get to do is work alongside our account teams and our partners to help you get the most value from ServiceNow. Have us come in and sit down with you to help you understand where are you on this journey. There's multiple legs to understand where to leverage a CMDB. Are you at that basis point? I need a CMDB. I need to get out of spreadsheets. Find a path to figure out where your sources are. Is it all spreadsheets? Do you have SCCM? Do you have other reporting devices, SolarWinds or others that can provide you information that we can coalesce, find ways to look for duplication, and identify what things are truly unique? So we come up with one record for each of those things, those CIs that are in your environment. Glad to sit down and help you figure out where you might have issues, where you might have things where you thought you put it in the right class, but maybe there's a better way. There's so many different classes inside the CMDB, and part of that comes from our vast experience with customers, understanding how do you classify or segment the configuration items we put into ServiceNow. We've built those out, and we can help you build that capability into ServiceNow and really clarify where you're putting data and clean it up so you're getting the right things and build that in there. The next step is determining how you get that next step of value. How do you identify ownership, and how do you connect it with your IT service management processes? That analysis comes in, and we'll look at your ITSM processes, make sure that incident and change and problem and request are using the CMDB information to understand, who are the approving parties and the support parties that are involved, as well as how do we know where that device is, because where is crucial when things go down. So we can help build out that layer. The next really depends on your organization. Are you looking at security? Are you manufacturing, looking at operational technology, looking at some of the things in field service, looking at some of the enterprise asset, or looking at IT asset management, looking at where do you have software or hardware asset spend that you'd like to optimize. Each of those help build in more value. So working with either ServiceNow or your partner, we can help sit down with you and understand where are you at on these journeys, these paths, and figure out what's the quickest time to value to help you, improve your CMDB, extend that common services data model, and find value from each of those steps. And I'd challenge you, or I'd encourage you, that's a better term, to say that anytime you look at saying, I need to improve my CMDB, be sure that you have a solid answer to why. We want to add this, why? Because we'll be able to identify the impact of those outages or incidents better. Why? Because we'll be able to prioritize our security incidents and vulnerabilities as they come in faster because we know the implications to our business services. Spending time with why is how you'll be able to track the value that you get from your investment in your CMDB, and it also helps keep that data current. If you've been around any type of database, you know one of the biggest challenges is twofold. First, how do I get the data in there? And then two, how do I keep it current, accurate, up to date, and valid? With a CMDB, the way to address the first one is using tools like ServiceNow's Discovery and finding all the different sources, coalescing it into a true single source so it's automated, things are coming in. But the next step to keep it live and current and accurate is finding ways to use that data. Without use, it will go stale. And so as you provide more value, it does you look at other ways to use that data, it does two things. One, it gives you value because you're improving prioritization, you're identifying implications for other services, but you're also keeping it up to date. One of the things that I'll look at is if I roll back in my experience, we started using our common services data model to identify approvers for change requests. That did a number of different things. One, it optimized the amount of changes that had to be manually removed because so many were done through electronic automation and electronic approvals that bypassed the need for manual meetings and reviews. But it also, let's say I'm a change approver and I get a change for something that really isn't in my space anymore. Why am I getting these? Answer is, I, as a service owner, did not update the dependencies relationships and they're stale. So if something is being changed here, it ripples up and says, I'm accountable for it. I need to update the CMDB. It gets me actively involved in making sure that as things change, I disconnect relationships and likewise add new ones. If you've worked in IT and you've been a product owner or a service owner and you've had something go live and then later you've had a change go and knock out your service and you never got notified, you never were involved in a change request, again, that points back to where's that relationship? How do I update the CMDB because my service depends on this and this and this? That's the type of thing that improves the data quality tremendously because we're actively putting that approval as a dependency on the data. It helps keep it active. And so again, as we come to a close, what is the ServiceNow CMDB? It is the common services data, or it is the configuration management database. It is that place where we put all the things that come together, both physical and logical, to build the services and capabilities for our internal employees and our customer-facing processes. That's the CMDB. Inside that CMDB, as we relate those together, we can use ServiceNow's common services data model to understand what those relationships should look like. As we build that out, it's not an exercise for database improvement. It's an exercise for enabling and unlocking value. Make sure you have the value conversation starting with why. And so with that, and if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. And I look forward to meeting you again next week. If you have other topics, reach out and let me know that you'd like to see. What is ServiceNow's, insert your blank, but CMDB, we're doing much more digging in with our clients to figure out how do we jump in, assess where you're at with these journeys, and give you some direction and recommendations on what are your next steps ahead. Again, thank you so much. Have a great week, and I'll see you on the next Workflow Wednesday. Thanks. Bye-bye.